Hey guys, today we're going to sit down with Lyle Henley. Lyle is the Director of Strength and Conditioning here at UAB Football. Wonderful, wonderful human being. So the goal here today is to figure out what his world looks like, but also kind of take a deep dive into someone that works their butt off and is super successful, but also how they take their life, they balance their life with being a father and being a husband. What we're also going to do is we're going to talk about his journey. Lyle's journey is really kind of unique, and it just goes to show the connections that he made and how he leveraged those connections to the success that he has, because he's been in the private sector, he's also been where he's worked for somebody, he's been in and out of that a couple times, and so it's really good. So join us today as we talk to Lyle Henley. So you're here at UAB. Give me an idea of what the daily thought process. Let's talk about in season first.
Yes.
In season first. What's the day look like for you?
In season, I mean, you're getting here, 5 in the morning.
Okay.
You're getting everything prepped and ready for the day. You're starting the beginning of the day with a developmental group, because people think about in season of,
Yep.
we kind of back off the guys. In season, it can end up being a 16-week cycle for you. So it's your longest uninterrupted training period you have, right? And most people don't look at it like that. So that's the time of the year when our team is built from the young guy up.
So you used a word that a lot of people are not going to know, and I understand, developmental. So what do you mean developmental group?
These are guys that come in, usually younger guys or junior college guys that are going to red shirt or have to sit out a year, maybe
For whatever reason.
And so they are lifting 4 to 5 days a week and practicing, but they're not traveling on the road with the team.
So their daily thought process, as far as training is concerned, looks different than the starting left tackle.
Right. It is solving a lot of problems, and it's trying to transition in from a novice to an intermediate. So hopefully we can get them within a year or two into an elite level lifter, so we can progress their training.
Solving a lot of problems. What do you mean?
So, movement analysis, strengths and weaknesses,
Okay.
Maybe they have poor nutritional habits. Right. I mean, sleep patterns. It's everything, trying to get them into being like you would handle the same way we would a professional athlete.
Right. So in the off season, what does the off season look like as far as like daily thought process? Because off season, you're training a lot of dudes, a lot of days.
A lot of dudes, a lot of days. Everybody's 4 days a week. Sometimes we go a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday split. Sometimes we do a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday split, depending on what we're doing and trying to achieve.
Right.
We basically start at 6 in the morning, and we're done every day at about 11. So it's not bad. So it's very intense. It's very, like I said, addressing certain problems and weaknesses from the season. We do a good job of doing a holistic approach. We sit down with the training staff and the nutrition staff, with Coach Clark. We sit down with the football coaches. What do we need to work on? What do we need to improve? That sets the tone for what we do the rest of the year. So we write our whole year-long training program at the end of each season. So in January, we sit down, and the whole year is mapped out based on what happened the year before. This year, like I said, for example, we lost 35 seniors.
Woo.
So, it's a different process. We need to get a little bit bigger this year. We need to get a little bit stronger. We need to spend more time. These guys need to spend more time developing these types of skills as opposed to these.
Right.
Looking at the injury report, what do we need to improve in there? We're looking at guys need to get bigger. Guys need to lose weight.
Right.
So it's not just me sitting down. There's no way I can do it. It has to sit down, and everything. We do a great checks and balances system of, maybe this is a good idea, maybe this is not. So it is a decision on the training program is formulated that comes from about 5 different heads.
Wow, that's great.
Yep.
So I skipped over this part. So you've got the in-season part with the developmental guys, starts early in the morning. Tell me about the rest of the day as far as the in-season, because it's like Monday's this, Tuesday's this. Tell me about the rest of the day on the in-season part.
So in the in-season part, those guys are coming. They're basically getting, the guys that are playing are getting 2 lifts in a week. They're lifting on Sunday after the game, then they're lifting on Thursday before the game. So yes, but throughout the process, throughout the day, as soon as we get through that lift in the morning, you're having guys come in and you're working guys. Basically, it's going to be return to play guys. Maybe a guy got hurt. He's got 2 or 3 weeks. We got to get him back. Maybe he got hurt this weekend and it's injured. We think that we can get him back for the game. So the strength conditioning coach is going to do as much hand in hand with the ATC, the trainer, so they're going to do their part of the movement stuff, and then they're going to do the strength and stuff, and then they're going to send them to us. Maybe it's some extra conditioning, maybe it's some extra work from some strength side.
Right.
So you can think, you're probably carrying during the season or in the roster 15 to 25 guys of like it's week to week whether they're going to play or not.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So like it's a constant process. Recovery, what do we need to do? So it's all hands on deck. So because you got to have your best product out there on the field every Saturday.
Yeah.
You know,
sounds like a constant communication between
constant
coaches, trainers, doctors.
Right, we meet 3 times a day as a staff just from on the medical side. So Coach Clark,
wow,
the coordinators, the ATC, the medical doctors, us, the nutritionists, we'll go in Coach Clark's office for 3 times a day and go over every single person that is maybe a question mark. And it's where are they right now? Where are they right now? Where are they right now? And then outside of that, we're going to meet 4 or 5 times with the football staff throughout the day. Where it is. So it is a constant. It's this machine that is in high gear during the season.
What do you do during practice? Because I mean, y'all are morning practice.
We're afternoon
practice. Okay.
Practice during the season. We do morning practice in the spring.
Gotcha. So what is your job look like when practice starts? A lot of people think strength guys' job's over.
No. We're rolling. So we've got 5 guys that we utilize in the weight room just from the strength standpoint. And basically, we are warming up the guys before practice. We're helping the nutrition staff get the nutrition stuff ready for practice. We're running what you call muscle beach. Those are guys that are out of practice, but we've got to keep in shape.
Yep.
We're doing return to play rehab guys. So there might be guys that had ACL surgeries or shoulder surgeries and are out for the season, but we're doing the return to play, and we have to do that during practice. And then basically, I'm running around coordinating all those things and actually, moving from drill to drill. It's different things. Maybe breaking up a fight and here once in a while, pulling guys to the side, pulling guys that need stretching in between.
Right.
You're constantly moving. And everybody, if you were to look at and watch one of our practices, it's constant movement, constant rotation. Not only with the players, there's no players standing on the side. There's you're doing something at all times. It's the same way with the staff.
Wow. So go to practice. What's it look like for you after practice? Because here we are. We start at 5 in the morning. We're probably at 4 or 5 in the afternoon. We're at 12 hours already.
Right. Post practice, we are basically checking in on all the guys, doing an injury report as well, setting up the stuff for the next day with the developmental group because they come in so early. We have to go ahead and have that set up, and then you're coming up and you're meeting with the staff at night and going over what's going on with the next day. Those guys are breaking down film and doing stuff. We usually get out of here about 7:30 or 8, but those guys are staying to 10 midnight every time.
So you're 13, 14 hours.
13, 14 easy, and it's 7 days a week. It's 7 days a week
during the year.
Yes.
So do you love your job?
Love it.
Why?
It's the main thing to me is not what I originally got into it for, but what Coach says, this is like a calling. You know what I mean?
For
so
sure.
It's 100% to me now about developing guys and young men and molding them for the future, and it's what it's about to me.
All right, so let's go ahead outside and walk around for a little bit. Tell me about growing up. Athlete, obviously, superior athlete.
No, I don't know about that.
Tell me about growing up. Your parents and sports has obviously been a big influence in your life. So give me some background.
Well, I grew up in the state of Arkansas. I grew up in I was born in a town called Warren, Arkansas.
Okay.
We moved all over. My dad changing jobs a little bit.
What did he do?
He did all types of things from real estate, but his main thing he did was a lumber salesman. So he was in charge of a big lumber salesman.
So sales.
Sales. He was a salesman.
He's a salesman.
He was a salesman. So we actually moved to Little Rock for a little while, then moved back to Warren, Arkansas, and I was there for about 12 years until I graduated high school.
Okay.
And
so football. Were you a football guy growing up? Did you play everything?
I didn't play football until I was 12. I played soccer, basketball.
That's right. Didn't play football till later.
Didn't play basketball till I was football till I was 12. So I was a basketball, soccer guy, and then got into football, of course. Played all the sports, baseball growing up.
Yeah, for sure.
But then got until I was of age, about 16, and got really big into track and field.
Okay.
That was my big thing.
So what did you do? How did you transition into football kind of being your thing?
Well, really, I'd always loved football. I always begged my mom and dad to play. We didn't really have tackle football to 12, which was actually a blessing.
That's a blessing.
Very much a blessing. So, I was always a big football fan growing up.
Right.
Dad was a big college fan. Mom was a big college fan. So
Okay.
Big thing was watching college ball on the weekends, watching pro ball on Sunday.
Right.
And then in my 9th grade year, I started getting recruited a little bit, recruiting letters, because I had good size growing up. Yeah, so it was I started realizing, maybe this is something I could do.
Right.
And I had no idea that you could get a scholarship, go to college
For free.
For free and get
Now,
paid for it.
here's a question I get a lot. When did you start like lifting weights?
I started lifting weights. I got my first weight set when I was 11 years old. Right. So, but that was like I wanted to play football.
Right.
And so, of course, Mom and Dad, well, if you're gonna play football, you got to be able to protect yourself. So
Right, for sure.
Got me the old school weight set, the old plastic weights with the sand inside, and so I started doing stuff on my own. I had no idea what I was doing. Mom and Dad got me down at the local YMCA. We were the smallest town in the nation with a YMCA.
That's cool.
So it was really cool. So we had a personal trainer down there, me and all my friends. We met with just one day a week and just kind of showed us what to do as a guy in high school who, no certifications or anything, just kind of knew what he was doing. So kind of showed us the
That's
ropes.
key. 10, 11, 12 years old, starting to lift weights, getting into football. Well, excuse me, 9th grade. So how did it progress from there? Did you just stop playing everything else and start playing football?
We started concentrating on, my thing was I was a real tall, skinny kid, real skinny. I think in 9th grade I was 6'1", about 128 pounds, like super skinny. So like coaches were like, if you want to have a chance at this, but I was fast. So
you can move.
That's what saved me.
Yeah.
But so the coaches were like, you need to gain some weight. So you can't play all these sports and gain weight at the same time if you want to have a chance to play in college.
Okay.
So my thing was, if I was going to have a true off season, I kind of noticed this early on. I'd actually went to a football camp at Arkansas and met John Stuckey, who was a legend in the strength conditioning field. He's passed away. John Stuckey, legend.
So what, he at Tennessee for a while?
He was at Tennessee for a long time, but he was at Arkansas when I went up there. And he actually took the time to sit down with me and explain the importance of having an off season. So when I came back, I was like, I'm going to run track and field because I like it and I want to stay fast. And the rest of the time, I'm trying to get bigger for football. So I walked away from baseball and basketball, and that's kind of where my interest in strength conditioning started.
So when did you start getting recruited?
Started getting recruited.
Like for real recruited?
For real recruited in my junior year. After my junior year, I was getting letters and stuff like that. Everybody's getting questionnaires to fill up, going to camps. But I played a little bit my sophomore year.
Okay.
And then my junior year, I started both ways, and that's when I started getting heavily recruited. I was blessed enough. I was getting heavily recruited. I had offers I had SEC offers before the SEC was the SEC, really.
For sure.
So it was, I had Ole Miss, Arkansas, LSU was looking at me, a lot of mid majors, and of course Louisiana Tech and some schools like that.
So what did you pick? Where did you decide to go?
Ended up going to Louisiana Tech. Went there. They were the first ones that really extended me my first offer.
Ruston, Louisiana.
Ruston, Louisiana. Went down there, only an hour and a half from my house.
That's huge.
That was huge. One of my teammates from the year before went there, so I felt comfortable there.
Okay.
And I just went down there and I loved it. And it was kind of a deal. And everybody thought I was going to go to Arkansas or Ole Miss, pick between one of those two teams, and ended up going with Louisiana Tech. And I got a late push from Notre Dame at the end, because the coach that recruited me at Louisiana Monroe went up there and extended me an offer.
Let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So you had an offer from Arkansas and Ole Miss, but then late one from Notre Dame and you stayed in Ruston instead of going to Notre. Who was the head coach of Notre Dame at the time?
It was, I think it was
Davey?
Just translated Bob Davey, maybe.
Anyway, it's Notre Dame.
I'm trying to think of who it is. It was a guy. He's an announcer now. I'm trying to think of his name. But it was right after Holtz.
So it was right after.
Holtz.
That's kind of. that's not typical. Everybody kind of wants to. So
right,
what made it just stay in Ruston?
Well, my mom convinced me that it was real cold and women were going to be ugly. So that was a big one. But one of the big things was I kind of saw the right. I was always been a loyalty guy.
Right.
And they had been on me since day one. I'd already committed to them.
Gotcha.
And I felt very.
There's a lot to be said for that.
It was, and you know what? If I had to do it all over again, I'd do it again.
Gotcha. Awesome. Hey, let's go inside.
Yep.
You decided to pick Louisiana Tech over Notre Dame and Arkansas and Ole Miss. So tell me about college, and you met Stuckey, which we'll come. We'll come back to that in a minute. But because if a lot of people don't know, they're watching this or listening to this, Stuckey's like the man.
Legendary.
And when it comes to strength and conditioning.
Yes.
I remember seeing his name when I would get pamphlets with my dad.
Oh, yeah.
When he was at coaching clinic. He was always on there if it had anything to do with strength and conditioning. Because he's the man. So we'll get back to that in a second.
Sure.
But so you go to Louisiana Tech. Tell me about that experience in Ruston.
Great experience, kind of, it was a small town,
Right.
big university. We weren't very good when we first got there, athletically, but we ended up being pretty dang good by
Very
the time
good.
we left there.
Yep.
And so, met my friends for life. Wouldn't change anything. Just I was running a bunch of unbelievable coaches at the time.
Right.
I think my freshman year, this is my sophomore year. Like my position coach was Bronco Mendenhall, who is at Virginia.
The head coach. The head coach.
At Virginia.
We used to be at BYU.
Oh yeah. Golly, our GAs were unbelievable. Like Pete Carmichael, who's offensive coordinator, junior, who's offensive coordinator for the Saints.
Yeah.
And then he's one of our graduate assistants at the time. What was the guy that was at the Indianapolis Colts? Ended up catching the cancer. The head coach.
Oh,
I cannot think of
I know
his
you're
name
talking
right
about,
now. His son, who's the defensive coordinator in the NFL now, was
Right.
one of our other GAs.
Who was the head coach?
Guys. It was Joe Raymond Peace, who's like a father to me to this day. Wow. But then Gary Croton came in as offensive coordinator and took his spot as the head coach. And so Coach Croton was one of the first guys to introduce the spread. Now, if you could run 4.6 or better, he moved everybody. I was a safety. I played safety my first year, and then linebacker. And then if you could run 4.6 or better, basically, he put everybody on offense. So I moved to played tight end my last 2 years there, and I got to play in that offense. It was really cool.
So we were talking about this earlier. We were talking about playing with Tim Rattay, who, in my opinion, I really think in my mind, if he would have been at what we call now a Power 5 school, he would have been like the Ty Detmers.
Oh,
and,
sure.
The big record setters.
Sure.
So he brought in. I remember watching him playing against y'all because we played against each other. We just realized that we played against each other in college. Thinking how crazy it was that he had such good talent around him, but he was so good. I tell my son all the time. My son's only 7, but I tell him all the time, the key playing quarterback is accuracy.
Sure.
And Tim could hit a gnat on the bull's balls.
He was the epitome of throwing you open. He would throw you open every time. He was really good quarterback.
So you're in college. In my opinion, college is about experiences, not as much about the classroom. And so the travel, the growing up, the having to do things, that was a big deal. But tell me, looking as you're in college, what do you think in your mind? I'm going to go do this because I knew I was going to go coach college football. What did you think?
Right. I was actually in pre-law. I'd done all stuff leading up to law school. I was going to be a lawyer and have my mom. And the main reason I wanted to be a lawyer is because it involved less math. I wasn't very strong in math. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was a good reader.
Right. There you go.
And, it's like law's the way to go. But, the more and more I spent more time around my strength coach in college, Matthew Fitz, and then I've been introduced earlier, like we talked about with Coach Stuckey. I felt I had a passion for this.
Right.
And so I come in my senior year, and it's like I want to change majors to fitness wellness. And, of course, I lose 30-something hours, and the coach is trying to talk me out of it. My mom and Dad always been very supportive of me. And they were like, if that's what you want to do, then do it.
For sure.
And lo and behold, I changed to fitness wellness, and my grades start coming up. I'm more tuned in. I realized it's a passion for what I had to do, and I noticed the lifestyle is going to be a little bit different from what I was wanting to do, But my head coach earlier we talked about Joe Raymond Peace. He had a connection with Al Miller, who's a legendary strength coach, and Coach Miller got me a graduate assistant spot at Alabama, and the rest is history going from there.
So some people know this, some people don't know this. Watching this, a graduate assistant is like an intern position at a Fortune 500 company.
Yes.
So in essence, you got an internship at a Fortune 100 company.
Yes.
University of Alabama.
Yes.
No matter what stage of their peak in their reign or their trough, it's Alabama.
It's big boy football.
It's Alabama. Yeah. So you go from Arkansas, go to Ruston, at Louisiana Tech, playing there, and then you go to a GA at Alabama. So for those that don't know what a GA is, like I said, it's like an internship. You don't make any money, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year. You go to school, but you work 60, 70, 80 hours a week.
Sure.
All the time. So tell us about that experience at Alabama.
It was great, being exposed to with Terry Jones there, and then Ben Pollard, and then and then we would go intern. We would go take a couple weeks and go with Coach Miller up to Atlanta. He was at the Falcons, so it was a perfect deal, and just being a sponge and absorbing all of those things, and just experiences of and what you need to do, the intricacies of strength conditioning. It was a unbelievable part of my life.
So going from a GA, what was the next step after that?
a spot opened up back in my alma mater, Louisiana Tech. An assistant spot opened up. So I actually went back to Louisiana Tech as an assistant. And there was a guy there named Eric Ciano, who's the head strength coach at Buffalo Bills.
Gotcha.
And then a guy named Damon Harrington was the guy I played with, who's now the head guy at Grambling. He's been over head guy at Cal. He's been at Georgia Tech. He's been all over. So, I get back. Damon gets promoted to the head job. I spend a summer with Ciano. Ciano ends up going to Tennessee and eventually works his way up to go into the NFL. Damon got the head spot. I got the assistant. When Damon ends up leaving with Ciano, going to Georgia Tech, then I get the head spot within a year. So
you go from being a GA to a head strength
conditioning coach at my alma mater within 2 years.
So how old are you at this time?
I'm 24 years old.
You're 24 years old, and you're telling dudes that you probably played with.
I did. There were the juniors and the seniors were freshmen and sophomores when I was there, so it was quite a transition. Something I really was not prepared for. I thought I was, but I wasn't.
How was that from a respect level?
It was good from a respect level because I was always the guy that was in the weight room.
Gotcha.
I wasn't trying to tell him something like, if you're a guy that's being lazy and skipping reps and coming also in your head strength coach, it's not going to work. But I was the guy that always stayed after and did extra and was encouraging even my teammates to come in and do extra. So I had that going for me.
The thing that I'm hearing is hard work is pretty much prevalent in everything that we're doing.
Absolutely.
Through this process. And I'll say this: being in college and playing college football, if you can survive the 5 years, I don't say survive, it sounds negative. If you can get through the 5 years, 4 or 5 years of doing that, and you still want to be in that business, that means you enjoyed it and it is one of your passions, but also that you put in a lot of hard work.
No doubt.
So you're at Louisiana Tech. How long were you at Louisiana Tech as a head guy?
I was there for 2 years.
Then what?
And then I moved into the private sector.
Okay, so I love this because that's what I did.
Right.
We had an interview before. BJ Ellis, used to college basketball coach who went into the private sector.
Yeah.
So tell me about, number one, why did you transition from being a head strength coach to your alma mater, which is a big deal.
Right.
Because you bleed there, you sweat there, and you've got family there. I mean, it's a big deal. Why did you leave there after 2 years and go do the private thing?
So my wife, we were trying to start a family.
Okay.
I'm working all 14 sports at Louisiana Tech with no assistants, no interns, no GAs.
Wow, so 250, 300 kids.
It's unbelievable, and it's 14 to 16 hours a day, year round, nonstop. And so, I enjoyed the work. I loved what I was doing. My wife was, I married a girl I met at Alabama. She's a softball player. She wanted to start a family.
Okay.
We wanted to start a family. She was from the Gulf Coast area. She's from Robertsdale, right outside of basically Daphne Spanish Fort. And, the pay at that time really wasn't great on the college level.
Right.
And so I have buddies that are in the private sector. One of them being Kurt Hester, who's at Louisiana Tech head strength coach now.
Ironically.
And I've always followed them, and they're like, hey, if you're going to spend this much time, you might as well get paid for it. And it's a little bit different thing. And so you can control your own boss. It's very intriguing to me. Let's move down to Gulf Shores. We actually moved down to Gulf Shores at the beginning. We're living at the beach. I always dreamed of living on the beach.
Of course.
Easy transition. It was great, right?
So did you have something going down there? I mean,
did not.
So it's like, hey, coach, I'm gone.
Right.
So you're another guy that left a job that he loved. You loved the job, but you didn't love all the.
There were some things there on the college level that I love it, didn't love it, and there were some things that weren't going kind of the right way. So it was not a difficult decision for me.
So tell me about the first 12 months being in Gulf Shores with. I mean, I say no job.
It was no job. It was not easy. I thought I was going to go down there and just smoke it. Little did I know I didn't do my due diligence. Like I said, in the private sector, I know a ton of great strength coaches that didn't make it, that were terrible businessmen, but I know a lot of great businessmen that weren't exactly great coaches that are still thriving and prospering today. So I didn't do my due diligence. I went down there and thought I'd kill it, and now, first of all, I'm moving to a tourist town with nobody there in the off season. So
no doubt. So
big mistake.
You know your stuff from a strength condition.
Sure.
Plenty of confidence there. But what you're saying is the business acumen was not there.
Was not there. There was zero of that there.
So zero business. Well, I mean, I didn't have any either when I got out of it.
Right.
So it's just something you learn. sounds like we learned it on the fly. So,
Right.
Give me a snapshot of that, how that went, what the process was, because I mean it's interesting.
So, after about a year of struggling kind of on my own, doing odd jobs and training little people here and there, I met a guy who was actually another protege of Al Miller, who was in the Daphne area. And we teamed up, and I moved up towards the Daphne area, which at the time, it was just, Pat White had just come out of there and went to West Virginia, and these guys were just that place was getting to be a hotbed. It was just the guys that were coming out of the area. It was unbelievable, the Mobile, Daphne area, Spanish Fort, Fairhope, and so we kind of teamed up and formed this thing, and we started double teaming everything, hitting these high schools, training these guys, and it started blowing up.
Hustling.
Right, and so then so that things started just snowballing. And I branched off of that and formed my own thing called the Athlete Factory.
Okay, so when you're with this guy, so I hear this a lot. Matter of fact, I had a conversation about this yesterday about two guys that worked together.
Yep.
One broke off. Was there any bad blood when you broke off?
Maybe a little bit, but we had a mutual respect for each other, so not really.
Sure.
He was more into the personal training side of it, you know what I mean, and I was all about the athlete.
Okay.
And I was all about the athlete, which cost me. He was a great businessman, and he kept those boot camps going year round. That really wasn't my thing, but I did have it going on to pay the bills and actually form some great relationships with some people. So
you broke off from him. Athlete Factory, is that what it's called?
Yes.
So what year is this? Do you remember?
This is 2009.
So 2009, you're doing the Athlete Factory. You've been down in Mobile for 2 years now?
4.
So 4 years now.
Yes.
So you kind of hem-hawed around for a year. You got with your buddy. Y'all did something together for 3 years. And I know some of the guys you trained.
Right.
Some boy dogs.
Yes, ended up, working with 17 first-round picks.
That's crazy, Lyle.
And over 50 guys that played in the NFL. And then that's not counting the basketball, the baseballs. The place is an unbelievable fertile ground for athletes. And I hit it at the right time. So I said, as soon as this place was snowballing, my company was snowballing with it.
So the Athlete Factory's growing. Tell me how long you did that.
I did that until the Athlete Factory lasted till about 2013.
Okay.
And in 2013, I had caught the attention of D1 Sports Training, who wanted to open a facility down there, and ended up selling my business to D1 Sports Training and working for them on a national level, go around training their combine guys throughout the nation.
Let's talk about finances as much as you feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
So you go from probably, I don't know, Louisiana Tech, I'm just going to say probably the $30,000 to $50,000 range.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Ruston, Louisiana, it's not bad, but it's not great.
Right.
So you're in this private sector.
Yes.
Give me an idea, a thought process of income that you went from. So when you're in the heat of the Athlete Factory.
It jumped. In the heat of the Athlete Factory, you're in the six-figure plus income.
For sure.
But you're also dealing with something I'd never dealt with before, about 30 plus employees. So that
you had 30 plus
30
employees?
plus employees, because what we were doing is we were private contracting personal training out to some of these gyms through our name.
Okay.
And then we're also putting coaches in all the high schools. All right, so we had strength coaches in the high schools.
Okay.
We have physical therapists that we're working with. We're working with doctors. We're contracted all out, and I'm telling you, it was way more than I could handle.
So let me ask you a question. How much of actual, because coaching, we talked about this, coaching and strength and conditioning was what you like. How
Yes.
much coaching were you actually doing?
I was actually only able to coach basically in the mornings, and then my high-profile guys throughout the off season, and then late in the afternoons, because I'm managing everybody else at the same time.
So you're not really doing.
It kind of went from this dream thing to something I didn't want to do. So,
Wow.
actually selling to D1 and just going back to not having to deal with anybody.
Yeah.
And just being a coach again was unbelievable. And I'm very thankful to Will Bartholomew, was the owner there, and believed in what I was doing. Great guy, and really helped me in the transition period.
So Will bought your gym, and
Yes.
in essence, when this happens, he quote buys your clients. Is that correct?
Yes.
I mean, yes and no. So,
Yes.
but you're still staying involved.
Right.
But it's D1 now, so you're going in and working for D1. So here's the question I have is, you go from working for somebody to own your own deal.
Yes.
To now you're working for somebody.
Yes.
Talk about that transition.
It was, working for Will was great. He's very understanding of the transition of what I went into, but, you're still not calling your own shots.
For sure.
You're still not doing your own thing. And it took them about 4 or 5 years to get what is D1 Mobile now They just opened up, think about it, last year. So from 2013, that's how long it took them to open up, because they're running into all kinds of problems with it, as in any business, right?
Yeah.
So what I was basically doing for D1 is I was traveling around and having to leave my family for 4 months out of the year to these combine destinations. So I was either having to go to Palm Beach, or we would go to Orlando, or we would go to, we even went to Jackson, Mississippi one time because they had an unbelievable facility. Just traveling all over and having to stay for 4 or 5 months. So, I kind of got out of the college deal to spend more time with family, raise a family, to get in the private sector. And now all of a sudden we built this thing up so much that now I'm spending more time away from my family in the private sector. So it turned into something once again.
Right. So you fed the machine, and the machine was kind of biting you in the butt again.
Absolutely.
So you are working for Will at D1, traveling around, being gone a lot, probably still making pretty good money.
Making good money.
So, but you sold your company, so you made a little money there.
Made a little money there.
And so he's paying you. I know he's got to be paying you pretty decent, at least what you were making.
Yes.
Okay. So you're doing that. You're traveling a lot. Then what?
I'd formed a relationship with Coach Clark.
Bill Clark.
And when he came down and became the defensive coordinator at South Alabama,
Yep.
he moved into a neighborhood which was actually only a block away from one of my gyms. So he would come, Coach Clark he is in a constant seeking perfection of being the ultimate training program. And Coach Clark, not only being an unbelievable football coach,
Great
as
football
we all
coach,
know,
yeah.
he was a strength conditioning coach back in the day. So he was very interested in what we were doing down there. So he would come down. He had actually brought his son and his daughter to come train down there. And he would come watch us train, especially in the professional athletes and the college kids during the day.
The difference in Coach Clark as a head coach, so, Coach Clark's had, as we sit here today, has had unbelievable success just about everywhere. From Prattville High School to South Alabama to Jacksonville State.
Right.
Here at UAB, and I played here.
Right.
So I see what he's helped create. Now, granted the group before us helped create this as well, but he was kind of the guy that pushed it proverbial over the ledge.
Sure.
It's just amazing to see. But the difference in Coach Clark and a lot of head coaches, it sounds like, is that Bill knew strength and conditioning.
Right.
Which a lot of those guys don't.
Right. If you talk to Coach Clark about what his favorite thing is about what we do, he'll tell you training right off the top of the head. How we train. He believes how we train is how we win.
Right.
And then it sets the tone for the culture which we have, our athletes do. So, anytime a program gets good and then they start to drop off, usually it's because the culture has started to fail a little bit.
For sure.
Because even if you've had great success, then you can start to drop off if you're not holding those guys accountable. And it all starts in the weight room as well.
Absolutely. You spend as much time there as you do anywhere.
Sure.
So you meet Bill down there, and you're training his kids, and he's watching you train these higher level athletes, 17
Yes.
first rounders, 50 guys in the NFL, not
Yes.
mention other sports. So he's watching you train these guys. So how did that? Other than training his kids, what happened there? How did that whole rush?
So what happened is he started getting big. Of course, his defenses were great at South Alabama.
Yeah.
He gets his opportunity to go to Jacksonville State, and we start consulting with him. So he's like, "Hey, we're about to go here," and we start a consulting process, and that starts. This is right when we're making the transition into D1. So I go off, I have a great deal. He ends up going to UAB and hiring one of his former players who's an NFL strength coach, Zach Woodfin.
I played with Zach.
Absolutely great guy.
Zach's an unbelievable human.
Great strength coach.
Great strength coach, yeah.
Zach comes here with him. They have an unbelievable year. Program shuts down.
Right.
Zach goes and gets a job at Southern Miss.
Right.
And, Coach Clark's got a spot open when they bring the place back. So I actually contacted Coach Clark.
So you contact. I didn't know that.
Right.
So you contacted Bill.
I got contacted Bill and said, "Hey, I don't know what you're going to do moving forward." I knew Zach might not be interested in coming back because his career had started taking off.
Right.
And I said, if you've got a spot, and he was like, "Are you serious?" Yeah. And so, after about 3 months later, he calls me back and is like,
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So, what made you leave D1 and working for? Because Will's everything I've heard of Will's a great dude.
Great guy. I had a great job. They treated me tremendously.
Right.
Totally trust everything you're doing. Like I said, I did not want to be away from my family at 4 months at a time. It was killing me. So the last 2 combines I went away, and my kids at the time were 2, 3, 4 years old.
Right.
And so right about Christmas time, it was almost depressing. It was almost like, in no way the anxiety or pressure, but almost like being in the military and having to leave. You're
Right.
going to come back. So, it's a deal to where it's so crazy. I got out of college to get in the private sector, spend more time with my family. Got out of private sector, got back into college. Who says they want to get back into college coaching to spend more time with your family? But I knew how Coach Clark was, and I knew that even though we worked unbelievably up here, I knew he was a family guy, and so it was going to be an opportunity of whether not see your kids as much on a daily basis, or not get to see them for 4 months at a time. Woo. So that was very big in my decision making process.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, of course, being up here in Birmingham, it was going to be an easier transition than going away somewhere else if I wanted to get back into college coaching.
Right. So being in Birmingham, it's kind of a deal where you're close enough to your wife's parents.
Sure.
That you can get down there pretty quick.
Yes.
So I get this question all the time, and I am qualified to answer it. You are more qualified to answer this question. So I see this on a constant basis, and I got buddies in the strength and conditioning world as well. All these moms and dads want their kid to be the next Tom Brady or the next Bryce Harper or the next LeBron James.
Sure.
That's the goal.
Sure.
I think it's probably as much parents living vicariously through their kids as much as it is anything. But let's talk to kids first, because there's going to be some kids out there, I say kids, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, out there watching this because they see your name on there.
Right.
Okay. What advice would you give them? Would you give these kids that are aspiring to play at the next level, meaning college scholarship? What advice would you give them from a strength and conditioning standpoint and nutrition standpoint?
From strength and conditioning standpoint, it's be patient. Don't be a number chaser. Even now on the college level, we don't chase numbers like we used to, right? So it's about movement now. It's about recovery. Now is it about getting strong? Yes, you do have to be strong.
Right.
But at what point are you strong enough? So if you have a coach, and I dealt with a lot in the private sector, a lot of impatient parents and impatient athletes at a younger level wanting to jump in and want to see what they're running a 40. They want to see how much they bench press, how much can I power clean, how much can I squat, how has my vertical. Those things are great, but all in due time. So there's a process for getting there. Usually if you have everybody now is contracting some type of strength conditioning specialist in the private sector right now, especially if they think their kid's got a shot of going into playing college sports, right? So if you have somebody that normally is taking their time with it, and we have a 6-step process: movement, mobility, coordination, balance, strength, speed, power, and endurance in that sequence and order. A lot of people out of sequence and order. So if you have a strength conditioning specialist, number one, make sure that they are certified through some nationally accredited certification.
Not a 2-hour online.
No. We're talking about the NSCA, ASC, and there's a lot of them out there, USAW. But at least if they've taken the time to do that, usually they care enough.
So you gotta have somebody certified.
Gotta have somebody certified, because there's a lot of crazy stuff out there right now. If you have somebody that is that if they're talking to you and the first thing to do is spitting out people they trained, that's usually a warning sign. Let them talk to you about what they're going to do for you and how they're going to train you in particular, and how they do this process, and does it make sense. Consult with somebody. Go consult with somebody and make sure that, hey, check this person out, run your background check.
That's huge. Running a background check. Not like if they're like child molester or something like that, but like making sure they're good at what they do.
Absolutely.
Okay.
If you've got anybody, check this. If this guy's got a huge rate of sending people to doctors or physical therapists and injuries in the past, like that. But somebody that's going to take their time and get you in the right way and be patient with you. Be patient with what you're going to do. Not rush everything. Like I said, not come in and they're gonna. If it's a trainer that look at you, hey, what do you run right now? Well, I run a 4.8. I can get you to 4.3. That's another warning sign right there. Whoa, wait out. So it's a very think about it like this. If you're going to buy a house, if you're going to invest in something really big, how much work do you do on looking at that? You should do the same thing with a trainer. You just send your kid to a trainer just because so-and-so went there or so-and-so did this. Because the one thing you'll find out in this field is there is no cookie cutter program. No. Everything should be individualized, and every single athlete is different.
Okay, so here's another question. You have these good programs out there.
Right.
Good high school programs that have good strength and conditioning coaches.
Yes.
I know of a couple that are stellar.
Yes.
What do you tell the kid that's a good athlete that thinks he's got a shot or doesn't, he may not have a shot or whatever, that's training at school during the week.
Right.
A lot of these kids have last period PE and they
Right.
train with their high school coach.
Right.
But then wants to hire someone. Talk about that, because that's a big deal right now.
That's a tough one, and that is something that I didn't deal a lot with in the private sector because there weren't really strength and conditioning coaches in many of the high schools. You just had a coach that was, and he was more than welcome. Yeah, go train with him. I don't have to fool with you. Now you've got full-time strength and conditioning coaches, and a lot of them are great, great strength and conditioning coaches. Here's the thing: if you want to get work with somebody outside of there, make sure that specialist, whoever you hired in the private sector, has got an open relationship with the strength and conditioning coach at the high school. That's the number one, it's the hugest thing. Because even the high school strength coach will tell you they don't have time to do everything that they want to do. Right? They don't have time. So there's different components that are missing. Even I deal with this now. We don't have time to do every single thing that we do. So if these guys want to go home for a couple weeks, I make sure I reach out to the trainer themselves and say, hey, this is what that guy is missing. And I guarantee you the high school coach the strength conditioning coach will be able to tell them, yeah, he's a great kid, but these are the things that need to be. So the trainer isn't going in and doing, we're going to do this no matter what you're doing. That's where you get a problem, when you start doubling up on things, and that's where injuries occur.
Injuries happen.
Right?
Yep.
And then you're wasting your money.
For sure.
You're getting doubling up. So if my coach up here is working on X, Y, Z, then you need to be working on A, B, C. And that's when you can kind of start bridging the gap and getting together. That communication have open communication between the specialist and then the strength coach at the high school. And I'm telling you, that's the thing that's the missing link.
So if you go to this private sector guy.
Yes.
And the private sector guy said, no matter how good or how renowned he is, if the private sector guy says, we're going to do our own thing because your strength and conditioning coach doesn't know what he's talking about or whatever,
right?
You don't need to be with that guy.
Right.
Because here's the thing, the strength and conditioning coach at school's not going anywhere.
Right.
If you're staying at that school, he's the guy that's going to train you.
Absolutely.
And so there's got to be open communication. So if you have a guy that says that, probably need to stay away from him.
Right.
Okay.
And I've been on both sides of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough deal, but like I said, the most success that I've been guilty of in the past as a private sector guy, but the most successful you're going to have is going to be, and we've ever had in the past, is when I've had an open relationship or dialogue with the athlete's coach. And if there's no way I would write a program now for an athlete without at least consulting with everything. And I'm not talking about the kid. I'm not talking about the athlete. Well, today we did power cleans and bench and squat. Okay, well, let's go out here and do this.
Yeah.
I got to know what the whole program is. So I've got to go up and sit down with the coach and go through his mind, because the kid isn't going to be honest with you, number one.
No.
And then he's not going to remember everything. Sometimes it's hard for me to remember what we did, right? So the kid's definitely not. I need to talk to the coach.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
For sure.
And it's because what it is, it's not about you and it's not about him, it's about the athlete.
Right.
And so if we want the athlete to be successful, then I've got to know what all is going on.
Let's talk about food. There's so many things out there right now. And
Yes.
I have not, disclaimer, I have not prompted him to say anything. So
Yes.
let's talk about food from that high school athlete perspective and what these guys need to be doing.
Basically, when I was on the high school level, it's kids don't eat. They don't eat enough. Number one, half of them don't eat. So it's about, number one, you need to have a plan. Just like we talked about a plan from a strength and conditioning standpoint. If you don't have a plan from the nutrition standpoint, I know it's an old saying, you can't out-train a bad diet. It's really very true. Yeah. And it's number one, you've got the first thing, number one, you got to have fuel in your tank.
Got to feed the machine.
Got to feed them.
Yeah.
So, and if you want to take it a step further, you got to have a good fuel in the tank, right? So it's getting a plan of what you need, how many calories you're going to be burning, and you talk about being from a strength conditioning standpoint and everything being individualized. On a nutrition level, it's even at a higher individualized program for what every athlete needs, right?
Right.
You've got weight gain, you've got weight loss, you've got guys that are allergic to this, you've guys that react better to these foods. There's so many different things out there. So the thing that has set us apart, I think we've had the most success, is we're the only, probably, I know in our conference for sure, but maybe of all the group of 5 that have 3 full-time nutritionists just for football.
That's crazy.
And so
good.
it's huge. It is huge. And other guys that I talk to in my field, they're like, well, what are y'all doing? And we tell them, yeah, we do that too. And then we get into nutrition stuff. They're like, well, we don't have that. Golly, that's now we see why guys look a certain way and they're able
Right.
to recover. It's the same thing from a high school level. You know, you think about it, you're even spending more time away in the high school level. You're away.
Yeah.
You got multi-sport athletes.
Yep.
You've got guys that don't have time for an off season. You've got guys that are just going and doing. All these kids now are like talk about getting private sector coaches.
Yep.
They're doubling up. They're double dipping in what
sure.
they're doing. So, you know, get with somebody, number one, who has a plan. Get with a nutritionist somewhere. Number two, you better have a good, you know, source of fuel of what you're getting from.
Right.
It's not, you know, feasible to think that their parents can prepare all this food, and with especially got other siblings and then time constraints, and you're picking things up. If you don't plan ahead, you're planning to fail.
For sure. Let's talk about parents.
Yes.
You see normal parents, you see crazy parents,
Right.
and you see absent parents.
Yes.
Because you see them all that come through these doors. What advice would you give to parents that have a kid that they think could possibly play at the next level?
If you think that, you know, number one, you have to be realistic. You know, you have to be realistic for, okay, what level is my kid? And I think that if you're willing to put in the work, and you're willing, and number one, it's dedication. The number one thing we work with on our guys is how to manage your free time. So it's, you know, video games, it's being able to study, it's how many hours of sleep your kid's getting. You've got to dedicate. Once again, I know it sounds like a broken record. You've got to have a plan for what you're doing.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to put in the work, like I was saying before, there is some level of college athletics you can play at. Now, it might not be Division I. It might
sure.
be Division II. It might be Division III. Whatever level it is, just go ahead and accept what it is. The biggest problem you have is you've got a Division III athlete or Division II athlete or 1AA, but their parents think that they're Division I, and so they keep pushing the kid, and they miss out on all these opportunities.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, if you're just trying to, the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball, they will find you no
Absolutely.
matter where you are. So if that's your end goal is to be a professional athlete,
find you.
it really doesn't matter where you play, right? If you have that talent level, it's a few and far between the athlete that slips through the cracks now. With, you know, the internet has made the world a smaller place. The way these guys are going out and identifying all these scouts, I mean, they'll find you, and there's an opportunity. So there's not if you look at the NFL or Major League Baseball or even basketball for that matter, it's made up of guys from everywhere. So if at worst case scenario, if my kid is going to college and they're an athlete, they're going to learn how to manage their free time, or they will be gone. You know what I mean?
Sure.
They're not going to put up with it. So you're learning life skills. It's the same thing. If you can teach your kid how to manage their free time as they're growing up,
Right.
the more successful they're going to be, because that's the guys that we find. Everybody that comes here is talented athletically.
Oh, absolutely.
Athletically, the guys that make it, as opposed to the ones who don't, or even set themselves up for a shot at the professional sports. These teams are evaluating these kids, and they're starting to look at how do they manage free time.
Yeah.
What's going on outside of here? The kids that are able to manage free time are the more successful ones.
For sure.
Absolutely. So number one, teach your kid how to manage free time. Number two, have a plan. And then number three, always encourage your kids. I mean, I promise you, as much as I even want to deal with my kids in sport now, because I want to get on them and say something, you know, I tend to back off, because their coach is on them. They don't need mom and dad hammering them too when they get home.
Yeah. Let's transition that. That's a good segue. So you got out of it to spend more time with family. You got back into college to spend more time with family. How do you manage? Because this is one of the big questions that I like to ask people.
Right.
How do you manage being a dad and a husband that works a ton?
Right.
Whether you're an entrepreneur and you own your own business because you've done
Right.
that, or you're working for someone and you're working a lot of hours. How do you? What's the best piece of advice you would give somebody that's doing what we're doing? Because I'm doing the same thing you're doing, just on different levels.
Right.
What would you give on how to stay a good dad and how to stay a good father?
The best advice I can give is something that I did consciously when we got back into college. I knew it was going to be tough. I was going to make my kids my hobby, right? If I wasn't going to have a hobby outside of here, right? So I wasn't going to leave here and go play golf. I wasn't going to leave here and go do whatever. But I love to hunt. I love to fish. But if I have some type of activity like that, it's going to be where I can involve my kids. So when I go hunting or fishing now, my kids come with me. Any free second I'm spent, it is done with my kids on any level, whether it's at home, whether we're leaving here. I'm not going to involve my kid. I'm not going to have another thing outside of work. If it can't involve my kid, I don't do it.
That's great.
And so, and as much as we can, we try to bring my kids up here. I make them feel a part of it. Especially in the summertime, they love to come to work with Dad. I've got a cool job. So
yeah, you got a great job.
Got a great job. So they
big
love
playpen.
They playpen. They come out. They love to be around the team football players.
Yeah.
Get them appreciate to what you're doing, see the importance of it. Know that Dad, it is as crazy as it sounds. Know that Dad, there's a reason for what he's doing. It's not he just wants to be away from you. He has to see what they're going to do. But like I said, any amount of free time you have outside of here or any other way you can sneak that in, even if it's 15 to 20 minutes a day of extra, it goes a long ways because I can tell. It makes
That's
a huge difference.
That's huge. All right, 5 questions to ask everybody.
All right.
I'm big into this. What does your morning routine look like?
Morning routine, wake up. I've always, I'll take a quick shake. It's usually some type of morning oats or something like that. Take all my supplements that I take for the day, my fish oils and stuff like that. I'm usually out of the house in 10 to 15 minutes, man.
So from the time you get up,
I'm rolling. I never hit snooze.
Gotcha. So you get here. Do you have anything when you get here when it's quiet that you do that you have that's before everybody gets here? Anything that goes on here from a morning perspective?
I always come in and make sure the condition of the weight room. We have guys that come in and work out at night and they leave stuff out. So first thing we do is tidy the weight room up. That's always my number one thing. I try to check my emails the first thing in the morning. Because you get a lot of stuff. When I go home, I shut my phone off.
Shut it off. That's good.
I shut my phone off, so I miss a lot of calls and stuff. So I'm usually returning calls or just hitting back text early in the morning.
Right.
So that's my daily routine.
Talk about food. So I hadn't seen you in probably two months when we met today.
Yes.
You've lost 40 pounds.
Yes.
So we can talk about that in a little bit. But
yep.
Tell me about what does a day of eating look like for you?
I do really, it has to be quick. You know what I mean? When I have a lot of time to eat. So, I basically spread out. I do a morning. I do some type of pre-workout, depending on what time. Some type of small meal. I'll do some type of post-workout, which is a small meal. I do a lunch where I'm able to sit down for at least 15 to 20 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, and it's
You don't get an hour for lunch?
No, absolutely not. Well, you have to do your workout during lunch.
No doubt.
So there you go. So I'll sit down and then I have some mid-afternoon. Then I have my dinner. I try to eat dinner with the family every night when we get home. So
gotcha. Good. Okay, so you kind of alluded to this earlier. You talked about being a good reader.
Yes.
Hated math. What's your favorite book of all time?
Ooh, favorite book of all time. I'll tell you what. I'm very dynamic in reading, so I read a lot. I don't know if I have a favorite book of all time. I do like the one I'm hung on right now is that I really like was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
Yeah.
Really great. I mean, he's pretty rough.
Yeah, he's
in the edges, but I tell you, man, the message behind what he does transitions so much into what we do.
Right.
That's a big one right there. There's a lot of golly, I'm trying to think. There's a lot of books I read in college sitting in the deer stands, man, that I can think back to. I like is it Unbreakable? With
yes.
the one with the guy that had the movie that they I love that one. That was a good one. And I don't know, that's a good question. I have to go back and look.
Yeah, we'll think about that.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. If you could talk to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell him?
Oh man. The one thing I've been telling you, learn how to manage your free time.
That's been a constant thing. I've asked questions about work. I've asked questions about family. I've asked questions about other kids.
Yeah.
That seems to kind of...
It's the management of what you do outside of what you do, okay? So you're going to do your work, right? Or you'll get fired. You're going to be at work. You're going to be working. When you get home, when you leave here, what are you doing with your life?
Right.
You know what I mean? Are you trying to better yourself? Or are you just trying to veg out on the couch and just totally shut off?
Right.
That was big on that. I just wanted to disconnect from everything and shut down. I have to realize that the most important part of my life is lived when I live here every day. If I'm family number one, then when I get home is when my day, I can't be off when I go home. I've got to be on when I go home.
That's hard.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've got to be there for my kids. I've got to give them just as much as I gave these players and coaches throughout the day. So I was not prepared for that early on, having a family. Luckily, I was married for 7 years before, and that helped transition before we had kids, you know. But yeah, that'd be the number one thing is, you know, learn how to sleep.
Sleep fast.
Yeah, sleep fast, and you know, just the management of free time has been the biggest thing.
Lyle, man, I appreciate it so much.
Absolutely.
So, Lyle Henley, one of the top strength coaches in my opinion. I've been around a bunch in my years in the country. What he's done here at UAB is created some guys and created these machines and got a program that was once just totally turned around, meaning didn't even have a program, and was brought back to reinvigorate this strength and conditioning program, and has done an amazing job. And still to this day has these kids that he used to train when he was in the private sector come back to Birmingham. Guys that are not even from Birmingham will come back to Birmingham and let Lyle train them for their NFL offseason. It's really, really pretty remarkable. So Lyle is on social media. He's the head strength coach at UAB, director of strength and conditioning, at UAB, and has a wonderful, wonderful staff. Hey, if you need some info on Lyle, we would be more than happy to connect you with him. He is a wonderful wealth of knowledge, and if he can't find the answer, he will get it to you in some way. So email me, info@millfit.co, and I will be glad to hook you up with Lyle Henley. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. We appreciate it. Look forward to serving you.